Hello everyone, my name is Markéta Hančová and today we'll speak about balalaika. Balalaika is a fascinating instrument known all around the world, played and loved, but it has very exotic nature because it's so ethnic and we associate it with Russian music. So I thought it would be interesting to explore together the story of balalaika. And let's start with the name, with the etymology. I love etymology, to dig down where the name and words came from. And balalaika derives from two Russian words, balakать, which means to chat, and balabolit, which means to babble, to lead you on. And they say in Russia that violin is the poetry of music and balalaika is the story, the prose of music. And when you think of the playing on violin and playing on balalaika, we have to agree with it. So let's go now to balalaika's appearance. So it's a wooden string instrument and it has only 3 strings. And you may not know that out of those 3 strings, 2 are the same, E4, E4, and A4. So between E and A, we have 4 steps. We call it perfect 4. So it goes like this, na, na. That's all we have for balalaika. And I celebrate my instrument piano because when I sit by the piano, I only have to remember which key should I push because I have readily available all 88 of them. But if you play on balalaika, which can play melody up to 2.5 octaves, which is what, about 30 notes, balalaika has readily available only 2. And need to not only remember which note to play, but also he have to or she has to make the tones just like violinist, clarinetist, oboist, flautist, and everybody else who does not have advantage of piano. Now, the strings are usually made out of gut, catgut. I know it sounds terrible. And the body is made out of wood. The bottom, the belly, is made usually out of maple or beech. And the top is made out of spruce or fir. And balalaika has interesting shape. It's triangular shape. And we are used to the string instrument to be curvilinear shape. And now we have this geometrical shape and there is a story that goes with it. It's actually a legend, meaning there is truth to it, but there are some facts that still need to be proved that are true. So let me take you to Russia. It is 1650 and we are at the court of Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich, one of the Romanovs who was ruling from 1645 to 1670, and he rules along with Patriarch Nikon. Patriarch is very high up official in Orthodox Church, and Nikon hated peasants' instruments, and he keeps talking to Alexei Mikhailovich. We should ban them. It's not good for the people. They get rowdy, they drink when they are playing, they dance and they are exhausted, they come late to church, and we should ban it. But Alexei Mikhailovich wasn't really ready to ban it, but Nikon keep persuading the Tsar and says, you know what, not only they dance and play, but they are also composing songs, and many times the songs are aimed against us. And I truly think you should make an end of it. So he persisted, and finally, unfortunately, all the peasants' instruments were banned. The officials came to each village and town and say, everyone is to bring your instrument to the middle of the square. And there it was burnt, or it was trampled on, or it was taken away. But what do you think, peasants? They will not live without music. And they started right away making new instruments. And up to that time, the most popular instrument was most likely domra. And domra has also 3 strings, even though it's E, A, and D, but it's round. And to make round instrument, to bend the wood, and the belly was made out of many pieces, was quite time consuming. And so one of the instrument maker comes out with what we will know as balalaika, triangle shape, and everybody is, what is it? You made it so quick. And he said, that's my point. It's so much quicker to make a geometrical shape than round. And maybe this is the story of balalaika, how it came to the shape of triangle. But musicologists believe that most likely balalaika was in Russia before 1600s, and we have those theories. First, one of the Arab documents is describing instrument that resembles balalaika already in 925, so in 10th century. Then there is other theory that Mongols brought balalaika to Russia in 13th century, which would make sense because they came twice to Russia to invade it, one in the beginning of 1200s and then in 1240s, and they stay there, and they have instrument called tapshur, which very much reminds balalaika, so that may be the inspiration. Then maybe some people feel that balalaika was inspired by instruments, pipa from China and shamisen from Japan, that could come by river Volga, which was linked to the Silk Road. Another theory is that balalaika was brought to Russia in 1600, 17th century, by Tatars. So we have all these theories, and we are not really sure exactly of the history of balalaika, but we know for fact that balalaika was very prevalent in 1600, and we have the very first record written down from Moscow Kremlin from 1688, when two balalaikists called smorogi were like jesters. They had a group of people that were entertainers, and they would go from market to market, from town to town. They would entertain in the main squares. And so those two smorogi, Ivushka Dmitri and Savka Fyodorov, were thrown in jail because they played balalaika, which in 1600s, as we know from the legend, were banned, and they were also most likely drunk. That's what the documents say. So we do know for a fact that we have balalaika very much established in 1600. Then we have another record from 1700 and then 1714 that at the court of Peter the Great, there was a balalaika concert, and then balalaika became very popular up to beginning of 1800s. And we have other record. For example, I just reread Pushkin's Eugene Onegin, and here they speak about balalaika. Gogol in his Dead Souls has also mentioned balalaika, and Dostoevsky in the House of Dead has also mentioned balalaika. So balalaika was already established as very, very, very Russian ethnic instrument. And then about 1830s, balalaika is falling out of fashion. And the reason is that there is a new instrument that was invented in 1830 by a gentleman called Buschmann in Germany, and it is accordion. By 1840s, every third family in Russia seemed to have accordion, and balalaika started playing, well, like a second fiddle. And then we come to a gentleman called Andreev. Vasily Andreev is very important for the renaissance of balalaika and for patenting balalaika in 1880s. So when you open a book on history of balalaika, usually you have two chapters, pre-Andreev and post-Andreev. So now we are at the moment when Andreev is stepping on the stage of balalaika story. Who was he? He was born in 1861 and he died quite young, 1918. He was from noble family. He was musician. He played at the court violin. And one day he's sitting on the veranda of his dacha, his summer house. It is fine July day, as he says in his memoir. He's enjoying his black tea and he hears this beautiful music. And so he's listening some more, and then he decides to go and find out exactly where the music comes from. So he goes and he finds a musician who plays balalaika. And he said, "Oh my God, of course, I played balalaika when I was little, and then I totally forgot about it." And he's listening some more, and long story short, he learns to play balalaika beautifully, and he is convincing luthiers to make balalaika. But no one is really so eager to do that because balalaika is now rather obscure instrument, not so prevalent. But he convinces his friend luthier Ivanov, who started making balalaika. And then several years later, a gentleman called Paserbsky, he started making balalaika, and he actually also just puts the finishing touches on the balalaika that Andreev started. So what Andreev did, he standardized the size of the balalaika because they were made at home, so they differed with the sizes. He also standardized the strings because some peasants decided to have only 2 strings, some decided to have 4 strings, so he standardized that. Also the length of the neck, and then the Paserbsky, he decided to standardize the number of the frets, and here we have balalaika. Now, it was patented most likely 1886. We don't know exact year for whatever reason, but we know it was in the 1880s. And what Andreev did, not only he patented it, but he really wanted to make a grand renaissance of balalaika because he felt it really has the soul of Russian people. And so what he did, he would go to army and he would teach the soldiers who were interested to play balalaika. And he said, if you want to learn it and if you would play it, I'll give you balalaika. And that's what he did. This is how he tried to spread the beauty of balalaika. And then, of course, he created a balalaika orchestra. Actually, it wasn't just balalaika. It had gusli, it had domra, and he actually tried to create all of those and recreate instruments. He had a grand premiere in 1888. And it did not go so well because we live in the time when in Russian culture, Russians loved their culture, but they were also infatuated with everything from Europe. So, for example, when in 1840s, Mikhail Glinka introduced the very first Russian opera, people kind of liked it, but they said, well, the Italian opera is maybe more fashionable and more enjoyable. And so it may have been influenced by the fact that serfdom was not abolished in Russia until 1861. And people really, the aristocrats and ordinary people, intellectuals, really wanted to be big part of the Western world. And that's why they did enjoy what was Russian, but at the same time they were drawn to everything else. You may remember that at the end of 1700s, many of the rich families, they hired a foreign nanny, so everybody spoke. The children can learn German and French. French was very prevalent language in Russia, and Russians are really in depth to the beauty of Pushkin's writing because he convinced everyone, look at our language, it's just so rich and beautiful. And he really was responsible for the great impact on people to forget about French at home and speak Russian. So that may have influenced a little bit that we have all these Russian influence, but it did not last long to convince people that these instruments are to be proud about and to show off all around the world. Andreev created a great imperial orchestra and he came to Europe, and in 1910 he came to USA. It was big world tour and people were absolutely enchanted all over the world, and balalaika became very famous and some of the other instruments as well. And as I mentioned, Andreev died 1918. And then came a gentleman called Troyansky, who established an orchestra that you may remember under the name of Osipov. So 1919, that big orchestra was established, Balalaika Orchestra, and Osipov came to reign in 1940, and the name was changed to Osipov. If you have instrument, you cannot have just one balalaika, and it go to the luthier Paserbsky, I mentioned him, that he created 6 balalaikas. The one that you know the most, it's prima balalaika. Then we have above it piccolo, and below it we have secunda, alto, bass, and contrabass. And the lower we go, the bigger we go. And the balalaikas orchestra are truly, truly, absolutely wonderful. And we have also one right here in San Diego. So that is the story of balalaika that we like so much, and I prepared for you some wonderful, wonderful excerpts or samples of balalaika. One of which really stand out and you will love, and that's pieces played by amazing balalaikaist. Her name is Anastazia Taurina, and she is mere 7 years old. And I know what you may think, oh, she will play some cute little Russian folk tunes. No, she will play some amazing pieces, including Rachmaninoff, the Rhapsody on Theme of Paganini, and her command of balalaika, but especially her musicality and especially the intuition and the harmony she has between her and the instrument is absolutely breathtaking. So I hope you will enjoy the samples. I hope you will enjoy perhaps the blog where I wrote most of the things that I taught you. And I hope that I will see you soon. So ladies and gentlemen, let's enjoy the beauty of the instrument called balalaika.